welcome back. Thank you so much for subscribing and following along. You can find more resources below in the comment section. Today, I want to focus on the budget cuts that we see happening, how that's going to affect the teacher shortage crisis, and just teachers in general. So during this time, we've seen a lot of trauma, not only for our students, but also for our teachers. When you quickly go from a work at school to a work at home, it is a much larger transition than something that you might have experienced before. A lot of teachers didn't have workspaces set up and didn't have anywhere to really kind of disconnect. A lot of times with education, you carry it around on your shoulders fully all the time, but when you're at school, you kind of have a little bit of unplugging that you can do once you leave the building. However, when you're at home in your workspace, you are constantly thinking about it. It's just a really big transition. And I know that personally from moving from the classroom to moving to my work here at Code Monkey and going fully remote. I had to have a designated workspace. I had to kind of set up a schedule. Otherwise, I'd find myself working really late into the evening and not really disconnecting from my work. And although it is easy to do it, it's not really beneficial for you to always be working all the time without taking those breaks. So there was that piece of it. Majority of teachers don't use digital resources. Not to mention pre-pandemic for teachers, the use of digital materials was still very, very limited. Of the resources that teachers were using in their classrooms, about 30% of it was digital. And when planning lessons, more than half of teachers were consulting or continue to consult Teachers Pay Teachers. If you don't know what Teachers Pay Teachers is, a website in which teachers create and curate resources for each other based on needs that they have identified in their classrooms. And they either are sold for free or teachers will package up content for them and then they'll basically sell their content for other teachers. They're standards aligned and they just meet certain metrics that the teachers are missing when they buy a prepackaged curriculum. Just over 40% of the teachers that were surveyed said that they conducted Google searches, and a quarter of them utilized Pinterest for their teaching instruction, and only a fifth of all the teachers surveyed were using the Common Core standards and or the state agency or district website. The most popular resource that teachers were using in their classrooms: YouTube, Kahoot, ReadWorks, Khan Academy, and code.org. Those are the tools that were most frequently used prior to the pandemic. Based on that data, we can very easily see that teachers were and continue to not be ready for a digital shift. And it's not the fault to the teachers, it's just something that has been in place for a really long time. Some things that kind of make this a true reality are the way that the teacher structure is set up. So as a teacher, I can go in as a first year teacher with my undergraduate degree, and I can stay in the same classroom, in the same district, and not change one thing from my first year all the way to my 20th year, and I will continue on a steady rate of salary growth. As I get more educational credits in some district, then my salary will continue to go up and still not continue to make any changes in my classroom until I reach the top of the top. So in some districts, the top cap has now been restructured and changed after the first economic crisis that we experienced back in 2009, 2010. And the kind of shortcomings that we found from that when they started to cut budget. In other districts, like some that I have recently worked in, the growth was just continuous for however many years you've been in the district. It was really hard to jump from one category to the next. If you move from your bachelor's to your master's, it was only like a $2,000 gain, with that total being broken up over a 12-year period. So there's not a lot of growth that you see with teachers. So it's kind of prohibiting.
Hold up, wait a minute.
So a lot of teachers can get burned out very quickly. That's just a common thing that happens. It weighs very, very heavily. And when you're not getting, the compensation or things like that to really make you motivated to continue to grow your trade. In addition to the salary cap and kind of how that's set up, is that there's not really anywhere to go. So you have a couple of choices. You stay a teacher, you become a team lead, so you get a little bit of extra stipend there. Then you will need to make a decision. Do you want to go into administration? Do you want to transition into like a counselor type of role? Or do you want to go all the way further up ahead of that, going into a superintendent? Now, there's not a lot of superintendent jobs It's pretty hard to get into the district office. And once you get into the district office, it can be a little bit more relieving than the heavy weight that you're carrying in the classroom, but you're also carrying other workloads that are associated with it. There's just not a lot of growth that happens. In a traditional business, you have a lot more opportunity to grow within the company where you're constantly having achievements met. So that can also stifle teachers a bit. They feel like, what am I doing every single day? They feel kind of like they're in a hamster wheel or they're continuously going. Maybe adding something into the hamster wheel, but the hamster wheel continues to go in the same cycle. So that's kind of a thing that really burns teachers out. I know that I have spoken with many teachers that kind of feel like that. They kind of feel like it's stifled growth, and so just creates a lack of achievement in a sense. Now, there are amazing educators doing amazing things, and it's because their heart is there. They do it for the heart. It's not doing it for the salary or anything like that. If you know, most teachers, they work second jobs. They have to, doing a lot of work with like MLM type companies or things that are more flexible with their schedule. They're parents, so they're busy. There's just a lot to it that can kind of cause that burnout. And a lot of it has to do with the financial standpoint of it and how the financial system is set up. There are other schools, like charter schools, where they can reward you and have more of a competency-based pay. So let's say you meet a certain metric, then you get a bonus. You have another metric, you have another bonus. So it gives you that ability to something that you really want to work hard for. And as much as you're not motivated by money, you're more motivated by the accomplishments that you achieve along the way. Budget cuts are going to be pretty monumental moving forward. We know that the budget cuts are going to be anywhere between 5 and 25% per district. With the budget cuts kind of moving forward, we're going to see a couple of things happen. We're going to start to see positions eliminated and teachers being shuffled around, but I do believe that there's going to be an influx of technology type roles. Knowing that things are going to have to really shift digital, it's the first time that schools, district leaders have really been kicked into overgear, understanding that online education is a must. It's going to happen. So why not move and roll with the punches? As much as it's going to be a frustrating experience for everyone to take on, it's going to be something that's going to be necessary in order for both the students to thrive and the teachers to thrive as well. We know there's going to be a summer slide. The slide, however, is going to be much greater than a slide that we've ever seen with students before because we have not been in contact with them by the time they return to school, if we return to school as normal, for at least 6 months time frame. By the time they go through summer and that kind of thing, some schools are seeing a greater length of time, and we know that underprivileged kiddos haven't had the same ability to access the curriculum and the tools that are needed to really thrive in this setting. We know that the data that has been published has said that the lower income students are actually falling behind. A couple of reasons: devices, network connectability, not somebody being home to be able to help them with the things that they need. So those are just some of the conversational pieces that are being kind of brought to the table. Another conversation is that the students are experiencing this slide, but we don't have really a lot of data that we're going to be able to pull from. We know where the students began at the beginning of the year. Hopefully there was a mid-year check, but the way that kind of COVID fell and how it kind of disrupted a lot of things, sometimes it messed with where people were doing their mid-year checks. There is no state mandated test, there's no ACTs, there's no real data points to really pull from. Assessment really struggled during this time. With the switch to online learning, a lot of teachers were not set up to have authentic based assessments where they could really test the knowledge of students without that basic level testing that was going on that you could just easily copy and paste your answers from somewhere else. Some suggestions for that summer slide is that teachers may be doing some looping where they may follow their kiddos to the next year and continue to work with them so that if we don't return to school as normal, the teachers will continue working with that same group of students that they had before so that they're not rebuilding that community that they've already built with their kiddos. Another thing that has been discussed is leveling of students. So putting students where they are based on their ability level. So I might have 3 teammates. I may take the advanced enrichment students. Another teacher might take the students that are struggling, and this other teacher will take the ones that are kind of in the middle. This creates a little bit more way to create that authentic engagement activities with students. Although we don't like to do this in the classroom setting, when you're doing an online setting, it is important so that you can work with those students at the same ability level, just like you would group them in a classroom. It's much easier to gain a better insight and help them grow in the way that they need to be grown when you have that. If you have a student A that's 4 levels ahead and you have another student that's 4 levels behind, it's really hard to bridge the gap between the two. And it's also hard to do that in an online setting where you're not able to meet with the students as you regularly would, especially if they have other classes. Maybe they're middle school, so they have lots of other opportunities for classes and they're meeting with their other teachers. So it's just a way to kind of help them academically achieve. I am a proponent for both of those options. I think that by doing that, it's going to actually show a greater student growth. The students will be able to have a higher level of achievement. The teachers will actually be able to meet their needs at a much greater level, especially if there's a special ed team or something like that that will kind of help and come in on either side of things, the enrichment side or the other side. When we start creating in this way, it's also going to give teachers a little bit more creativity than they've been used to in a really long time. Also going to have to make teachers who have kind of been on that one note who were not using digital resources, about 70% of teachers not using digital resources are going to have to kick into high drive. It's going to kick a transition. Either teachers are going to move into this threshold or the teachers are going to fall out of the threshold. That's going to be a difficult conversation that districts are going to have or teachers are going to have a very hard self-reflection. Do I see myself moving forward to this next 21st century or do I see myself taking an exit? So the teachers are really going to have to make a decision. The teachers that do continue, I think that the districts need to have a different conversation, reworking the salary system instead of having just one flat rate. You kind of have different levels of different things that if you're also not only teaching by ability level, but only subject levels, you'll start to see that there's a little bit more movement for teachers to develop a deeper level of mastery in what it is that they're teaching. That's also important. Instead of having to know such a breadth of knowledge, now you can actually have a greater depth into what it is that you're doing. That's a struggle for a lot of classroom teachers. I know personally for myself, it was hard to know everything all the time. And then when I started doing something specific to just content, I felt like I had a better understanding and could dive deeper into what it was that was going to be more meaningful for those contents. I know that not everyone will probably agree with what it is that I'm saying, but I think that if we move in this direction to this greater online learning where teachers are basically taking their skills and turning them into a fun and more engaging way and kind of flipping everything upside down, I think we're gonna see really happier teachers. All teachers are committed, but teachers that are more committed to this change and the workforce that's ahead. I also would challenge a lot of teachers. There's a lot of meetup groups that are going virtual and digital online to try to jump into some of those, whether it's a marketing one, whether it's a technology one, something that you're interested in, jump on and kind of see what it is that they're working on. You'll be able to get a really good understanding for how the industry is moving. Not only have you been making connections at this time with other teachers and across state lines and things like that, but it's really important to also connect with industry because we need to know that what we're doing and how we're preparing our students, obviously working with the standards, but what we're doing is going to meet what it is that is needed for our students to thrive in this 21st century. You can look at any of the data sets that are happening and the world is turning digital. As much as you don't like it, you can track COVID-19 on your phone and see the contact tracing just by an app following you around. In China, they have face recognition where they can see everything that's kind of going along. If you look at the increase of both AI and robots themselves, it's happening. So either you're going to roll with it or you're going to have to step out. And those are just hard conversations to have with yourself. I had to have a hard conversation with myself too. Was this the best fit for me going forward? And I felt that I was better suited to working with teachers in the professional development side of things. Even though I'm not directly in the classroom, I am still meeting a lot of students. I am still working with a lot of students and working with a lot of teachers. Not only do you have to be in the classroom to make that difference, I know how hard it is and my heart is with all of the teachers during this COVID-19 time. I really hope that you'll really make the conscious decision on how to move forward in addition to planning for how the school year goes, but really revamping how the school day works. I think you'll have a much greater environment in industry and a lot less people will be traveling outside of your school districts than have ever before. A lot of parents are searching for new options for challenge for their students. They feel like they're not getting what they need. The lower achieving students, their parents are not there as often, but it doesn't mean that they care any less. They want their students to thrive. Every parent wants what's best for their students. So at the end of the day, we need to provide our students with the real skill sets needed to succeed. I can speak from my own experience working from a STEM school, and this year those students graduating from high school, the things that they have accomplished in their short time of education is more than I've seen from any group of students I've ever taught. And we shifted the way that we were teaching to make our students ready for what the world had ahead of them. I think if we work together, put our heads together, and come up with a new plan of action, we're going to have a very strong educational system moving forward. Thank you again. See you guys next time.